A gunman opened fire at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, yesterday, 11:30 Eastern Time, 10:30 local time there in Texas. At least 26 killed, 20 more injured. Immediately, the deadliest mass shooting in a place of worship in the United States. Charleston's church shooting had 9 deaths, 26 so far here. And I believe actually the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history as well. The ages of the victims ranging from 5 years old all the way up to 72 years old. The perpetrator, a 26-year-old white man, former member of the Air Force, is confirmed by the Air Force by an Air Force spokeswoman, previously court-martialed for assaulting his spouse and her kid, sentenced to a year of confinement, demoted to the lowest pay grade of the military, an E1, and eventually received a bad conduct discharge, which is just short of a dishonorable discharge. Reportedly connected to this church, either directly or through in-laws, also possibly connected to some others at the church in less direct ways, still to be determined, and reportedly was working as a security guard, also posted pictures of his firearms to Facebook as recently as a week ago. The way this went is that this individual, 26-year-old individual, showed up outside the church, entered the church wearing tactical gear, before entering and after entering, did a bunch of firing of what appears to be a semi-automatic weapon, which a lot of these details are still quite early. Ultimately, he started fleeing the church, and as he was leaving, some other guy with a gun, a neighbor of some sort, brought over his rifle and engaged the gunman and reportedly shot the gunman once. The gunman continued to flee and in his vehicle. This other guy with a gun flagged down a passing vehicle, got in, and a vehicle chase ensued. Ultimately, the gunman lost control of his car and died of what, as of an hour ago, local authorities are saying was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that's relevant to this. The gunshot wound that the shooter sustained from this so-called Good Samaritan, apparently not the gunshot wound that actually ultimately killed him. Police found the gunman in his car at the county line, dead from a bullet wound that they believe was a self-inflicted bullet wound. Now, as soon as this broke, it was abundantly clear the storyline from the right is going to be good guy with a gun killed the bad guy with a gun. Good guy with a gun, heroic in defeating the bad guy with the gun. And that is a distraction. The real issue is, number one, how many people are trying to solve problems or react to calamities in their lives with guns, how easy it is to get guns, and the reality that in almost every single one of these instances, guns were not used by civilians to save the day, nor could they have been. Think to the dark movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Think of the Pulse nightclub, dark, loud, and packed with people. Think of the Las Vegas shooting where the shooter was in a hotel room 400 yards away, dozens of floors up, not to mention that if the story we currently have is true from this horrific shooting in Texas, the gunman had likely already killed everyone that he was going to kill at the time that he was engaged by this other dude with a gun. He was already reportedly fleeing. He had already shot up the church outside and inside. And there is danger when you have untrained civilians participating in high-speed chases with firearms. This is why 911 always says, do not pursue the individual when you make a call to 911 and say that there is a crime being committed or you believe that there is one. Now, of course, the reaction from the right is always different if it's a white dude who's American or a Muslim dude. Donald Trump took to Twitter after this happened and said, "May God be with the people of Sutherland Springs, Texas. The FBI and law enforcement are on the scene. I'm monitoring the situation from Japan." Trump talked about prayer. The focus was prayer during a statement he made from Tokyo. And of course, there was a lot of discussion of prayer because after all, this took place at a church, which raises a lot of questions, right? I mean, what is the role of prayer here, given that this took place in a church where Christian people were already praying? What exactly is the relevance of prayer? Well, I believe that it is something that you can say instead of, this was a terrorist attack, right? When the shooter is a different color and religion, it was a terrorist attack, it's an animal, we need travel bans, and we need more bombing in the Middle East. When it is yet another one of these white dudes, it's horrible. we need prayer, and it's just mental health. And for the people lining up and saying it's not about guns, it's about mental health, what about laws that prevent people with mental health issues or domestic violence backgrounds and having been confined for acts of domestic violence? What about laws that prevent them from getting guns? And the legality of the guns is up in the air. There are conflicting reports that are coming out. And also the wording of whether or not this is an act of terror. FBI agent just an hour ago saying they don't consider this an act of terror right now. Donald Trump calling it an act of evil, not an act of terror. And that may well be the case. But we need to consider the language that is used around these stories depending on the identity of the perpetrator. This will sell guns. That's the bottom line. These incidents, along with threatening people that the president is going to take your guns, which isn't happening now, but was being threatened under President Obama by groups like the NRA and the right, that sells guns, and this will sell guns.